Okay, what's going on, everyone? I am not a content creator. This is not going to be professionally made. I just wanted to create a quick video of how my power and water setup is at the Lazarus complex, because I struggled with it when I first got here. And, I would take the elevator and the lights would start flickering and I'd get stuck in the middle, and I just didn't have enough power coming in. I know there's issues with running the Lazarus racks where if you don't have enough power and water, you can lose the seeds. So I just want to show you what mine looks like. Now, keep in mind, this was all pretty much patchwork as I learned the game. So it's definitely not tidy or organized, but I'll show all the lines. I'll show all the capacity, and then you can at least see how much power and water it takes, or at least what is safe. And then, maybe do a better job than me making it look clean. But since we're inside, I'll start with the water. So the water is pretty easy. You have the saltwater pumps down here already available. You just have to repair them. Technically, there are, I think, three or four. Four, yeah. I repaired them all, but honestly, I don't even use more than this one, because once you get some tanks going, there's honestly not that much water required. But I did do 2 filtration systems just so that there's enough water being processed out of this one. And so on a volume per volume, maybe that's not as efficient, but it works for me. It fills up my tanks. I have no problem. Stop judging me. So yeah, first you need power down here. So you got to run power down here. You repair this guy, plug him in, and then you get your saltwater output, which I run into here. These connections all reset every time I reboot. So I don't know if that's correct or not, but it does work. So you've got a saltwater input, and then I've got 2 outputs going to each of my purifiers. So one to this purifier, one to this purifier. And then the 2 freshwater outputs come out of the purifiers and go into another little mixer where they go up as a single line. Same thing for power, single line coming down, and then I split off power for both the saltwater pumps and the water purifiers. And that seems to work fine. Again, not the prettiest, but gets the job done. Going up top, I'll show you these water pumps. So I have a single feed coming up, feeding the first water tank, and then these. This is what happens whenever you leave the area. These cables do this thing where they just like die inside or whatever. You gotta reconnect them. Okay, now we're doing things. So yeah, 2,000 liters per, so I have a total of 6,000 liters. You won't need anywhere near that, but I just kind of overcorrected. So these are all equalized, and then this technically would be a output running over to here, and then over to here, where I am splitting off a feed for over there. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then continuing on into the center of the Lazarus racks, where I have a splitter here that can feed at least 3 racks with 1 splitter. And honestly, I've never needed or wanted more than 3 racks, because you can only launch 3 at a time anyway, and it's just a hassle. I don't know. I just do 3. Yeah, so for this other feed, I've actually run a line over here to my kind of work area, where I deconstructed the food processor from up in that room and then reassembled it down here. So I've got a water feed into that, and then I have the soil forge for creating the food bits. So, I mean, you probably don't need to see this, but you guys know how it works. Put the junk in there. and you get the bits. Put the junk in, you get the bits. So yeah, I have the, all of this, basically the whole work area. And you need 2 water. You need 1 for the food processor and for the soil forge. And I've never had a water problem. Power, on the other hand, was a mess when I first started. And as you see it here, it looks like a mess. It still looks like a mess, but I'll explain it. Right now there's not much power coming in. That tells me it's probably dark outside. But effectively what I have that looks entirely crazy right now is that I have 7 medium batteries. 5 of them are getting power input into them and building up, and they support this area, this little maintenance workshop area over here. And then 2 of them are dedicated for the Lazarus Rex, and I'll explain how I have that set up. I'll show you the power inputs later, but if you just look from a capacity perspective, you've got your inputs coming from your solar panels and your wind turbines, and then you've got your batteries. So effectively what I have is I have the inputs coming into this first battery, and then this battery, and these batteries are all equalized. You'll notice there's no output here, so this is kind of the end of the chain. Effectively, I could have put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 just side by side in a line, and it would look better, but ain't nobody got time for that. So they're all over the place. But effectively, that's what it is. These 5 all work in conjunction to supply power to the internal workstations, and they feed over to both my Lazarus rack batteries and the pumps downstairs. So that's why I have 2 feeds coming out over here. So these are all daisy chained. This line right here feeds over to that battery, which is daisy changed over to those batteries. So really you only have 1 input, a bunch of equalized outputs, and then these 2 right here feed both the Lazarus rack and the pumps downstairs. So we'll look at those now. So this one goes to the pumps. It's just a single feed, directional, goes downstairs to the pumps. This one feeds over to this battery. And here's the key difference on the batteries, right? If you run all of these in equalize mode, then everything draws from everything. So every time I craft something, every time I do anything down here, these batteries would slowly start to drop. And if anything happens, which often does with your inputs, your Lazarus rack batteries would be in danger. So instead of equalizing all the batteries, I equalize those 5, and then I turn this one into a input only. That means that even if those ones, for whatever reason, fully drained, they would never draw power from these 2. These 2 are always, because as you know, if your pods lose power for any extended time, then the pods die, the seeds die. So I wanted, these are like my emergency Lazarus batteries. These 2 are of course equalized, so the entire Lazarus rack system is equalized, or is running off of these 2 batteries that are equalized. Hopefully that makes sense. Like just to reiterate, like all of these battery connections to each other are equalized. And then the input into the battery is coming into this series. This is where the input's coming from. But technically this one would look like, it's this one. Should look like this on this end, right? And actually this one should look like that as well. Those are kind of directional. directional, but then these are equalized, and the output feeds over to a splitter. I call it a splitter. Probably a power junction box. What is this? It's doing this again. Okay. Yeah, like I said, every time you leave, all these reset. So, you know, they seem to work just fine. But, you know, every time I come back to here, I go through all the power and water lines and reset all the lines, just because you can get screwed like that. And you'll notice it's pulling some power. It's very minimal right now. But yeah, that's what it looks like down here. So that's the internal components. Let's see if we have light outside. I can show you the outside. Ooh, watt, 2.1 watts? I don't know, that's weird. I'm used to seeing like 50 watts, 60 watts, or kilowatts. The line I ran down those stairs, I know that it's more efficient to run it down this ladder, but I didn't know that at the time, so again, don't judge me. But the key thing that I learned early on up here was that the building and that power down there does not run off the same thing. So what I effectively did is I didn't want to use the elevator and then risk draining batteries to the Lazarus rack. So effectively what I did, I did what everybody else does when I first got here. I repaired these. I repaired those turbines over there, the original ones, and then I chained them together and put them into the maintenance shop. What I learned later is that power doesn't power the building. I needed a separate line, and furthermore, I didn't want the two to mix. I wanted to keep them separate. So what I ended up doing is I put the original panels here. I added this panel and these turbines, and then all of that is for the building. That goes into the shack there. Inside the shack I have one battery, I think. Yeah, one battery, and that's powering kind of the building, elevator lights, whatever, and this guy, which I don't even use anymore. And I don't think it's necessary, but I did break off one feed for the relay room. I think once you finish that achievement, you don't need that, but just in case I left that connected. But again, relay room, building power, lights, elevator, all only run off of this stack and that battery in there. That's it. Everything else up here is for my Lazarus rack. Now, listen, solar panels are more efficient, but they run out at night. Obviously they turn off and you don't have anything coming in, and I was afraid that when I was crafting it would happen during night and the power would drain and then I would lose a seed or something like that. So I did use a lot of turbines. I think now that my batteries are built up, I might even add more batteries, and then I'll probably switch all these out to solar. That way, you know, I'm never in danger of losing power in the middle of the night. But for now, this is what it looks like. I have the original turbines. I added 2 more turbines here. Those are all chained together and feed up towards the door. I've got 4 more turbines and 3 more panels. 2 of the smallies and 1 of the bigs. All of this, all that gets chained together and feeds up here. So you could look at this as kind of this is the left batch. It goes into this one. You got the right batch over there that eventually goes into this one. Both of those feed into here and go downstairs. I will clean this up. I will change these out. But effectively, when this is actually working and reading correctly, I don't know why this says 2 watts. I guess I'm not drawing anything. It says it gets up to around 90 kilowatts with all this power, which is more than enough to keep those batteries powered up. It's just a pain. It is a pain to have to come and reset all these connections, so I think what I'll do next is I will probably build more batteries. Maybe have 10 batteries down there, get them all charged up first, and then swap most of these turbines out for solar and clean it up a bit. But in a pinch, when you first get started and you're running out of power, it works. And I have not had any issue that is not related to a cable resetting. Like when you leave the area and you come back, you have to redo all the connections. As long as all the connections are there and everything's flowing the correct direction, no problems whatsoever. I will caveat this to say there is a connection here that I'm going to remove, and it's this one. This is one of my inputs. Think of this as the input running into there. This is one of my inputs, and it runs out to that solar and windmill array out here. It doesn't give enough power, honestly. Solar on that side of the building is ridiculous. The building's in the way, so you get light when it's over there, and maybe when it's over there, and the rest of the time it doesn't even work. You know, it's like it doesn't provide a lot of power. It's not worth it. It's probably better to maybe repair and then destroy what's out here and use these resources on the roof instead, my opinion. So yeah, I would just get rid of all this. So yeah, that's what it bees like. So, enjoy.